they had a flood here in, I think it was 59 or 58 or something, because where this library is now, this used to be a black section of town. From 10th Street on down was a black section. The black school was down here.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first came out, I was never from a place that was segregated, lived in Stanford. But somehow I met somebody, because I came down from Colorado first, and then I went back and got my wife and kids and brought them down here. And we had a flood that year. And to this day, it's funny. This whole section, before they put the new storm drains thing, used to flood every time it rained. Well, we had a house trailer parked on 11th Street, I believe it was, and it was on the front page of the Stillwater News Press. And my wife was Caucasian, and we were the first interracial couple in this town, back in 58. And it had the fire department. The water came up right up to the front door of our trailer house. And they put in the paper, Barbara Bramwell, and an unidentified man. And every time I tell people about it's right on the front page. All the firemen, they all knew my name, but that was back then.
Wow. That's so insulting.
Gosh. Well, that's the way it was. But we never had any problems in this town, but that's the way things were in those days. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Today is May 17th, 2023. My name is Karen Neurohr. I work for the OSU Library in Stillwater. And I am at the Stillwater Public Library with Mr. Ernest Bramwell Jr., who goes by the name Bud. And we're going to talk about his time at OSU and about his life a little bit. Would you prefer that I call you Mr. Bramwell or Bud?
Bud.
Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to start with some easy things here. So tell me a little bit about yourself. When and where were you born? Tell me about your parents.
I was born in Stamford, Connecticut, which is a long way from Oklahoma. But I wanted to be a cowboy all my life, so I had to get to Oklahoma.
What's your birth date?
July 25th, 1937.
Okay. And your parents' names?
Ernest L. Bramwell
Mm-hmm.
and Mary P. Bramwell.
All right. And do you have siblings?
I had two sisters. Yes.
Who's the oldest?
I have one older sister, and I'm in the middle.
You're in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay. So, growing up in the late 40s and early 50s, what were you interested in?
Well, I played football and baseball, football and ran track. And when I was like 11 years old, my family started taking riding lessons. I kept talking them into it. The whole family used to go and take English riding lessons once a week. And that's what really got me started with horses.
Uh-huh. Where did you have to go to do that?
Well, even though Stanford was in the city, on the outskirts of Stanford, about 15 miles, there was several riding stables, so we used to go there Saturdays and Sundays and ride.
Was it all English riding?
It was all English, yes.
Mm-hmm. So how did you become interested in the West and rodeo?
I don't know. I just always wanted to be a cowboy. I used to sit and doodle and draw pictures of horse trailers and horses, and just always wanted to be a cowboy. So when we were about 15 years old, some fellows had gone out to Arizona that we knew and came back, and they were trying to teach us how to rope calves. And we used to drive up there once or twice a week and pay 25 cents to chase a calf, and that's where we got started.
Did you own a horse during that time?
I got my first horse when I was 15, yes.
What was his name?
Billy.
Billy?
It was a Tennessee walking horse, but it was a horse. So.
It was a horse, yeah. So did you have a Western saddle then too?
Yes, I got a Western saddle.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started riding Western from then on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started going to rodeos from my senior year in high school. There was a rodeo at Woodstown, New Jersey called Cowtown, which is the oldest running rodeo in the United States. So that's where we used to go every week to go to a rodeo.
How long would it take you to drive there?
4 hours.
Oh my goodness. Did you stay overnight?
No, we just drove there and drove back the same night.
Oh my goodness. Was your dad participating?
No, he rode horses when he was younger in Jamaica, but We were in the real estate business in Connecticut. So.
Did you work for him when you were
Yes.
growing up too? Yeah. What kind of things did you learn from him?
Well, we bought a lot of, we owned a lot of property in Stamford, and we had first rooming houses, then we turned them all into apartment houses. At one time, we had 16 apartment houses that we owned in Stamford, Connecticut. So it was a lot of maintenance, and remodeling.
Okay, so so the first rodeo you saw, tell me where that was again?
It's called Cowtown in Woodstown, New Jersey.
Woodstown, New Jersey. Okay.
And it's still running today.
It's still running.
It's a professional rodeo, PRCA rodeo.
Yeah. What was it like then?
It hasn't changed much over the years. The rodeo itself is actually pretty close to what it was originally, but it's a weekly deal, and everybody from Florida used to come up and spend the summers there and work for the owners and rodeo on Saturday night.
Sounds like it would have been fun. So it sounds like your parents were supportive.
They were supportive. Of course, they didn't know anything. My mother was really religious, so she thought cowboying was gambling, so she didn't understand that part of it. But my father was really supportive. Yeah, they bought my horse for me, and we boarded him at a stable in Stamford.
Did your father grow up in the British West Indies?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
When did he come to the United States?
I'm not sure of the year, but I think it was like in 1925 or 28. He came across on a boat, on a banana boat from Cuba, and
he
came
landed.
to Stanford.
Was there family up there already?
No, he didn't have
He was the
family.
first one?
He was the first one to come here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And what about your mom?
My mother was originally from Stanford. Yeah.
So you said you played sports in high school. Did you have any thoughts of trying to play sports in college?
I did. I had a scholarship to go to school, but I wanted to rodeo. So,
What did your parents think about that?
they weren't too keen on the idea, but they went along with it.
So what year did you graduate?
I graduated in '63, I believe it was, from OSU.
From OSU, okay, but from high school, what year
High
did
school,
you go?
1955.
55, okay.
I came to OSU to get in vet school, and I was on the alternate list for 3 years. I got accepted to the University of the Philippines, and I got accepted to Tuskegee. But in 1962, I didn't think taking my wife to Tuskegee was a great idea. So I stayed in school and got a bunch of different credits. I've got enough credits for a master's.
Okay, let's go back to high school, and you used to go up to the rodeos. Were you competing against adults?
Yes.
You were?
Yeah.
What events were you doing?
Calf roping and steer wrestling is where I started.
Did you have a favorite of those two?
I prefer the rope, but I made more money wrestling, steer wrestling.
So when you graduated high school in 1955, then what did you do?
Well, one year I went to Springfield College in Massachusetts, which was like an athletic school where basketball was first discovered. Neesmith was the first man from Springfield. I think the Basketball Hall of Fame was in Springfield.
What's his name?
Neesmith, I believe his name was.
Oh, okay.
They have an annual award for Neesmith.
Yeah.
I went there to play football. And then I still wanted to come out west, so at one time I decided that transfer and come out to OSU. I stayed out 1 year and then I came out.
So were you just working during that year?
Yes.
You were off?
Yeah.
Okay. Did your parents go to college?
No.
No.
No, they didn't.
Were they supportive of education?
Oh yes, very supportive of education.
Yeah.
All my sisters have gone to school and graduated.
You were talking a little while ago about what your plans are to do at OSU to honor your parents.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that again?
Well, I'm working with my attorney now, and we're going to establish a fund for the rodeo club for some deserving students. We haven't got it worked out yet, but
Some scholarships.
yeah, scholarship. Yeah.
That's real nice. That's a nice tribute for your parents. It's not an inexpensive sport to participate in,
It certainly isn't. It's changed a lot now because now you can have sponsors. When I rodeoed, sponsors weren't allowed, so you had to make your own way. Now these kids spend more time begging for money than they do practicing.
Oh, so
It's different.
you had to have like a day job, and then you just kind of rodeoed.
Yeah.
Had to fit it in
I
around.
would shoe horses all day long and then go to a rodeo at night.
Oh. Where'd you learn how to shoe horses?
A friend of mine in Colorado started showing me how to do it, and just through practice. But I used to shoe a lot of horses there in Stillwater.
When you first went to college, you said it was a big sports college in Massachusetts.
Yes.
And were you planning
Springfield College?
Springfield? Were you
Yeah.
planning to play football there?
Yes.
Okay. Did you play?
I wrestled and played football there, and,
Oh, okay.
and
Did you wrestle in high school too?
no, our high school at that time didn't have wrestling.
But you wrestled in college. I bet you were good at it. Did that help you learn how to work on and wrestle those steers a little bit?
A little bit.
Different though, huh? Did your parents take you and drop you off, or did you have a car?
I had a car when I was in school.
You did? Yeah. So what was that like going to college for the first time?
It was a little intimidating, but I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun.
Did the sports probably kept you busy?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have a horse with you?
I didn't have a horse my first year in school, but second year I did. Took a horse up with me.
And was your second year at Colorado State University?
Yes, I went there. I can't remember the year, but I think it was 57 or 8, something like that.
Okay. And how long were you there?
1 year, because at that time, when I went to Colorado State, they were taking students from out of the state in the vet school, and then they stopped, and then Oklahoma State was still taking out of state students, so that's why I came down here.
Okay, so you were pretty focused on the
trying
vet
to be
school.
a vet, yeah.
So
That's what I would tell everybody, but I wanted to rodeo.
Okay. I found, when I was doing my research, I found a copy of the school newspaper, and it was talking about the block and bridle rodeo.
That used to be a thing on campus there. Everybody, after the college rodeo, they would have what they call the jackpot, and everybody from the state and the surrounding states would come to the block and bridle because they'd have a calf roping and steer wrestling after the college rodeo. It was at the building, but I think they've knocked the building down that was on campus where they had the block and bridle. But it was a yearly event that the Block and Bridle Club put on, the college rodeo, and then they had the jackpot after, and all the former world champions and current world champions used to come to that. And it would get over 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It was an all-night affair. But we had a lot of fun there.
The article that I said, I think you took third in steer wrestling, but you were on the Colorado State team then, the rodeo team. So then you wound up at OSU in
I think it was 58, I believe.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the years.
Yeah, they run together, don't they? These are from the yearbooks at OSU.
Oh.
This is 1957.
Oh.
And I noticed there's a couple of
Let me see. I haven't seen
cowboys of color in that picture in 1957.
I have no idea who they are.
Let's see what it says on their names.
Would one of them be T.J. Smith
Let's see. 1, 2.
or Cleo Hearn?
Yes. Lucio Hicks and Larry Goff. Is that
That's one of the
ringing a bell?
Goffs, must be one of the Goffs from over at Tulsa.
Huh.
I didn't know them.
Okay,
So that's 57?
that's a 1957 yearbook.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the 1958 yearbook. They're not in that picture.
Okay.
And then this is 1959 yearbook picture.
Mhm.
And then we get to 1960.
Oh, I'm in this one.
You are in that one.
So maybe it was 1960 then. Yeah, Sonny Air was in there. I remember quite a few of those guys.
Uh-huh.
Craig Cobley, Sonny Air, Ken Newens, you know.
That bring back some
Bring
memories.
back some memories, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Buzzy Cole was in there, yeah.
And then in 1961. Okay, by this time, had you already graduated?
No,
No, okay.
I stayed out in 62 and I graduated in 63.
Okay. All right, so you were there in 60, and then this is the 1961 picture from the yearbook.
Is that me there again?
Mhm, that's you
I don't have my
again.
glasses on. Yeah.
You have the same hat, I think.
Not the same one. Oh, yeah. Everybody looks different.
Yeah, and it said, one of these articles said that they were preparing for the national championship to be
Mhm.
here in Stillwater.
It was a lot different in those days. I think one of our closest rodeos, we should have to go to Las Cruces, New Mexico. That was in our region. I don't know what year they changed, but that was, like a 700
That's a long, that's
mile
a long,
drive. Yeah, now they
long
just have to go to
ways.
Kansas and around there, but we had to go a long way, and they were only giving you 10 cents a mile to go, so you had to pay your own way.
Oh,
It didn't mean
gosh.
much to have.
No.
Yeah, the good old days.
So which rodeos stand out to you from those days?
I can't even remember them.
Mm-hmm.
I know we used to go to Las Cruces. Did we go to Saul Ross?
At Tarleton,
Yeah,
Texas?
that's a blank slate. That's what I remember
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
A long time ago. But I know if you were on the rodeo team, you got the 10 cents a mile. Gas was 50 cents then, but still, it cost you to go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were the entry fees?
I don't even remember that.
Okay. But you could win money.
You could win money, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have any idea what the fees were. I can't remember.
Did you work while you were doing all this too?
I shot horses, yes.
You shot horses? Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have your own truck and trailer
Yes.
and horse here?
Yeah.
Where did you keep your horse?
When we first came to town, I think we stayed at Dr. Redding's, had a farm a mile south and a mile east of Stillwater. And he delivered my first daughter. And I remember my wife picked up pecans to pay the bills, $100, and she sold $100 worth of pecans
Wow.
to pay the doctor bill. So we stayed on Dr. Redding's farm. We had a house trailer, and we put up an arena,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife gave riding lessons, and we roped and blew up there.
What year did you get married?
I believe it was 58 or 9.
So you were a married
Yeah.
student when you were here.
And when I came to school there were a lot of vets here with wives. There were a lot of married students, more so than there are now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So was
Because I
there?
remember studying with a couple of guys that were veterans, and they were all married. They lived on campus in the student housing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So were there any limits to being on the rodeo team as far as your age?
No, you had 4 years of eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So was your wife supportive of you rodeoing?
she was a horse woman. She taught school in Vermont at a private school called Putney School, And she was a really good horse person, and she gave a lot of riding lessons. And after graduation, we bought a place east of Stillwater, Stillwater Training Stables, which we operated until 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So she trained a lot of horses and gave a lot of riding lessons. She had dog training courses. And, yeah, so she was pretty well known.
Mm-hmm.
For,
was the training stables already there, or did y'all start
no,
it?
we built it.
You built it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We bought a 60-acre piece from, I think his name was Luster, back in 63 or 4.
Uh-huh.
And then we bought the adjoining 60 acres and put up an indoor building, which was, I built a round barn, which was never built around it before, and people used to come from all over just to see this round barn that had stalls around the outside and a riding circle in the middle. Then we put up a building, I think in 68 or something, which was the first indoor arena in this whole area. We used to have ropings and team ropings and things there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of college kids boarded horses there.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife, she had a course at the university there where a horse production course that she taught.
So she had a college degree?
Yes, she had a college degree, but she had the riding program for OSU for about, I think, 10 or 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was her name?
Barbara.
Barbara. Okay. Did you get a rodeo scholarship to come here?
Yeah, but the rodeo scholarships, it's a little misleading because in those days, all it meant was you're on the rodeo team and you're going to get the 10 cents a mile. We still had to pay, pay to go to school, so my folks paid my tuition and things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But on the rodeo team, you would think you were going to get a free ride for everything. It didn't happen.
Did they have anything like that at Colorado State?
A couple of guys got a little assistance, but no one was getting free rides, like football scholarship or anything.
Mm-hmm. Was it a hard or easy decision to leave Colorado State and come here?
It was easy.
Yeah. Okay. So, you were older than a lot of the guys on the team, or was there a pretty good mix? Or
I was probably
women?
2 years older than
Most
the
of them.
oldest of the rest of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How were you accepted?
Oh, we never had an incident, and the whole time I was there in Stillwater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how were, there probably weren't very many black students
No,
at the college at that time.
not at that time. There was a fellow in vet school, Rhodey Butler, and DRC Magruder. They were in OSU vet school during that time. But there weren't a whole lot.
What were their names again?
Dr. Rhodey Butler and Dr. DRC Magruder. They were both in vet school at the time.
Did you ever know Dr. John Montgomery? He was down at Podo, and he had a vet business down there, and he had some affiliations.
I knew Dr. Mitchell from Bristol. You know, he was for years. He practiced. Now his son is practicing here in Bristol.
Mm-hmm.
See, at that time, they were taking girls in vet school. Only 13. There were only 29 students a year that got in vet school. Not like it is now. And they were only taking 2 girls in the class. Now, the vet school is all girls.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
And the type of practice people are going into has changed, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Used to be a lot of large animal
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
Now a lot of small animal.
Now it's small animal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of the kids now are going down to the islands to go 3 years and then come back here and finish it over OSU.
They go where?
It's an island off of, what's the name of it? Not St. Kitts. Yeah, but it is St. Kitts.
Oh.
They have a 3-year, one of our good friends, she went, and then another girl had her mother's a vet in Stillwater, and she went there 3 years and then did the final year.
Huh.
And a lot of people are doing that. Because it's tough to get in, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm happy, that it worked out. I've had a good life.
Okay. So was there a coach for the rodeo team when you were on it?
I'm trying to remember. Was it Andy Kincaid? No. There was a fellow that was the head of the horse program at OSU at that time. Was his name Kincaid?
I don't know if
The
he'd
older
be.
fellow. I can't hardly remember his name. Let me see if he's on this picture.
I don't know.
And he was kind of like the head of the rodeo club at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. He had a horse program here.
Were there some team traditions that you all had?
No, mostly everybody. When I know when I went to school there, I bet you I built 6 arenas in this town.
Did you?
Every time you move, the first thing you put up was a roping pen, And now you can hardly find a roping pen in Stillwater, but everybody that came to school there would either rent a place outside of town or somewhere and build a roping pen and practice. They even used to have a Stillwater Roundup Club up north of town where that Quick Trip is, I believe, in the funeral home. That used to be we'd go there I think it was on Tuesday nights, and they had steers and calves, and you could practice there. But we always built an arena everywhere we went, every time we moved in town. And most of the kids that went to school there, they were the same way. They'd put up an arena somewhere, and we'd go to one guy's house one day and rope, and go to another guy's house the next day and rope. In those days, we always had 1 or 2 calves, or maybe 3 at the most, and we'd bring them all together in the back of the truck and practice together.
Yeah. Did your wife and kids come watch?
All the time, yeah.
Yeah. It was just part of the life.
Part of the lifestyle, yeah. Yeah.
So was the first roping arena that you built and worked on, was that here in Stillwater?
Yeah, I built one a mile south and a mile east of town, and then I built one out west of town on Chris. We rented a place from Chris somewhere, which is about over by west. No, it was west of Western, a couple of miles.
Okay.
And then we bought the place out where we're on east on McElroy. That was the last place we our permanent.
How did you know, like, how much lumber to get and the size and everything?
We just copied what we saw from somebody else. We'd get some railroad ties. They'd give you railroad ties in those days, and you put up the fence and get some wire, and it was good enough to practice in. Our later arenas were all pipe and welded, but in those days they were just wire and
railroad ties.
Railroad ties.
Was it barbed wire?
No.
Smooth wire.
Or hog wire, yeah, or panels.
They
used, in fact, after the war, when we first came in, a lot of the arenas out here were made out of landing mats from the army that they used to land the airplanes on. There were flat metal panels, 10-foot panels. A lot of people had arenas made out of these landing mats. You don't even see those anymore.
No. So, were there lights for roping at night?
Not in those days. When it got dark, we'd park the cars next to the arena and turn the headlights on. We used to rope by headlights.
Oh.
It's pretty primitive compared to nowadays.
But it worked, I guess.
It worked. Yeah.
So, what was the thought back then? How much would you need to practice to be able to be a good competitor?
Well, when we were going to school, we practiced every day. We roped every day. And the better you got, the more you felt like you could take your chance at going to a rodeo and try to win something. But there were a lot of amateur rodeos around at that time also. I got my PRCA card my first year in 1962. And the first PRCA rodeo I went to was Fort Worth, which at that time was the largest professional rodeo. And I won first at that one, the first rodeo I entered. So.
In what event?
In the steer wrestling.
In steer wrestling?
Yeah. Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. So, of course, I thought I'd never see another hungry day. But But I can remember having a lot of guys over the years would come to our place in Stillwater, and they would rope with me every day, and I'd help them with the roping or steer wrestling. And it was just a way of life. Kids that came to school there, you know, they'd come out and rope with us every day.
Mm-hmm. So, where did you get the calves?
Mostly from the sale barn. There was a sale barn in Perkins. We'd buy a lot of calves from there, you know.
Uh-huh.
It's way cheaper than they are today, but, you know, you used to buy a calf for $50, you know.
Uh-huh.
And one year, cattle got so expensive, we roped Shetland ponies.
You did?
We roped Shetland ponies and tied them just like you tied a calf.
Huh.
In those days, you could buy a Shetland for $50.
Uh-huh. And it's about how long would the calves be the size you needed for roping?
You could probably get 2.5, 3 months out of a calf, and then they either would quit running or get sour or sore or got too large.
Mm-hmm. They go back to the sale barn?
Take them, try to get the sale barn and try to get your money back, which you hardly ever did.
Oh.
Because you buy them at a premium, and then when you sell them, they've lost their bloom, so they don't bring as much.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever raise any of your own?
We tried raising bottle calves one year,
Oh.
and it's a lot of work, but it worked out all right. But we even bought a machine from Sears and Roebuck where you'd mix some milk, would hang on the fence, and it kept it warm, and you know had the calves would suck on it. But it's a full-time job just trying to keep them alive.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to do.
Mm-hmm. So when were your? I see that you have Lisa, Betsy, and Heather.
Yes, I have 2 daughters, and Heather's a girl that I met, raised her since she was 5 years old.
Do you remember when was Lisa the oldest?
Lisa was the oldest, yeah.
Mm-hmm. How and what year was she born?
I think she was born 62 or 3.
Mm-hmm. And then
I'm not good on dates.
Oh, no, I'm
Betsy
not
was 3 years younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Heather, did they get into
Yes, they're both.
rodeo and everything?
Yeah, Lisa still gives riding lessons now north of town. She's at a stable north of town. They have an indoor arena, and she gives a lot of riding lessons. And the youngest girl, Betsy, she was the youngest girl in the QHA to win a world championship. She won world when she was 14 years old in the reining.
Oh, wow.
They were both good horse people.
Mm-hmm. That's great. You must have really enjoyed following them and watching. Yeah. And then you took Heather in when she was 5 and.
Yeah, I met her mother when she was 5, and I raised her. She lives in Oregon.
Oh, yeah. And how many grandchildren do you have?
I don't even know. Three, I think, or 2. I'd have to count them up.
You'd have to look. Do you have any great grandchildren?
I think I do.
Do
Yeah, Lisa had 3 children,
Uh-huh.
and one of her daughters is a nurse. She has a son that finished nursing school, and then Betsy has a daughter and a son.
Mm-hmm.
And Betsy doesn't have any children, but her brother has 2 children.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to when you were going to school at OSU, and you were married and you were starting to have your family. Were there dances? You know, some of the rodeos have dances after the rodeos. Did the rodeo?
No, we
Never had dances or anything like that.
I'm sure they had them, but I never went to them.
Yeah. Did you attend any?
Because we lived off campus, you know, we didn't.
Right. So it was different.
Yeah.
Did you attend any sporting events?
No.
Football games or anything like that?
Just rodeo.
Just rodeo.
Johnny one note.
How often were you able to go home?
To Connecticut,
Mm-hmm.
we'd go home for the summer usually, and at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember first couple of years here, we would put a sign up in the old college paper. A student wanted to share the gas to go to New York, and we always got 1 or 2 jump in the car with us and get $20 a piece or something,
Uh-huh.
and we'd drive them to New York and bring them back when school started again.
Huh. Well, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you don't dare do that now, but in
I
the
don't
old
know if
days we
they
used to
do
do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It worked good for both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did your parents or siblings ever come visit you here?
They came out for graduation. My folks came out.
Well, tell me about that, what that was like.
Well, at that time there was only, if I can remember, there was only one motel in town, which was out east on 51. There were no other motels, so they stayed there for 3 or 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
and they came out for graduation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the furthest they'd ever been from home. Yeah.
So what was that day like?
Boy, it's hard to remember it. I'm pretty sure, I don't even remember if the graduation was inside or outside.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what it would
I can't remember.
Uh-huh.
But they did come out for graduation, I was glad. That's good to see them, I'm glad I made it, so.
Yeah, yeah. So at that time, were you, was that when you were trying to get into vet school?
Yes, yeah.
So what was that like?
I can remember there was a kid I rodeo with, I don't even remember his name, but he had his pilot license, and he flew me up to Kansas City to interview at Kansas State. And we got caught in a storm, and we were flying along the railroad tracks trying to find it. But that's one of my regrets. When I first came to school there, a lot of guys were getting their pilot license. And at that time, it only cost you like $500 to get your pilot license out at OSU. And I was too busy rodeoing. If I had a regret, that was it, that I didn't take time to get a pilot license then. Because everybody that was coming to OSU would get the pilot license.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's $20,000 or $30,000 to get a pilot license.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so your bachelor's degree was in what area?
Animal science.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you have any favorite professors or classes?
I'm trying to remember them. I can remember coming to OSU my first year, and everybody was walking around campus with a pad and pencil. For the botany class, we had to name and identify 50 trees, and we'd have to walk around campus memorizing trees. I can remember that.
Did you take that class?
Yeah, I had to take it.
You had to take it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can remember my beef prod and my swine prod classes we'd had at OSU, and we'd wind up butchering poultry at the end of the semester. And I can, remember doing judging clinics and things like that. But boy, that's a long time ago.
Uh-huh. Did any of the professors stand out to you?
If I could remember that. I can remember Dr. Tadachek. I can remember him.
Tell me about him.
I think he taught beef prod, I believe, yeah. And he was here for years.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Dr. Maddox that was an agronomy teacher. I remember him. Ooh. Boy. There was Dr. Hilliard, I believe. Yeah, he was a swine professor, yeah. His names are coming back to me.
Haven't thought about him.
No, 50 years I haven't thought about him. There was a fellow named Andy, was his first name. He was the head of horse prod at that time, horse production.
Uh-huh.
And then OSU was just getting started in the quarter horse thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you have courses related to horses? Courses related to horses?
Yeah.
Yeah, were you more drawn to those?
Yeah. But in those days, it was easy to rodeo because we weren't on the semesters here at OSU then. We were on quarters.
Oh.
So now they're on semesters, 2 semesters. Then it was on quarters.
Mm-hmm.
So school would start in September after Memorial Day a week. Well, I'd still be up in Idaho or North Dakota or some rodeoing. I would never get back to school till like September 20th.
Uh-huh.
And the professors in those days, they didn't mind if you're a rodeo. So school would be in session 2 or 3 weeks before I'd get back in town to rodeo.
Well, that worked
It was
out
good.
well.
It worked out well.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember what your hardest class was?
No.
No.
Probably 345 chemistry.
Chemistry.
Yeah.
So what was it like to be trying to get into vet school at that time?
Well, if I would have probably put a lot more effort in it if I wasn't rodeoing as much. But we had classes with just about everybody that was trying to get in vet school. A lot of guys got in 2 years, but most of them got their bachelor's in those days before they applied to vet school.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there were only, at that time, I believe, 13 vet schools in the country. There are a lot more now. And there were 29 or 28 students that was the class size, and out of those were 2 girls usually.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tough to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. You graduated from OSU in, I'm terrible with
I
years.
believe it was 63.
63. All right. And you were trying to get in vet school. So when that didn't work out, what were you doing? What'd you do?
Well, that's when we opened up our boarding stable, and I shot horses here in town.
Mm-hmm.
And until I believe it was 1970.
Oh.
And then I went back to Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I got divorced and moved back to Connecticut. My dad was getting up in ages, and we had a lot of real estate there that I needed to go home and take over.
Mm-hmm. So I think you told me the other day that you took graduate classes also, but you had enough credits for a master's.
I had a lot of extra credit classes that I really didn't need, and that I transferred with.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So the University of Philippines wasn't really an option for going to vet school?
I thought about it for a while, and I decided it's too far from home.
Yeah. That would have been different.
It's a long way.
Yeah.
Tuskegee could have been an option, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I didn't want to push the barrier at that time.
Yeah. Were there times when you did push the barrier?
As far as
Just in the rodeo business or in what you were doing?
well, rodeo is an individual sport, and if people at rodeo are a little different than the normal, it's a pretty good brotherhood association, and if you conduct yourself well and people can see you have talent, you usually don't have any trouble in those days. Back in those days, there were a lot of rodeos that black contestants couldn't enter. But being from back east, I didn't know that. And I met some guys when I came out here that were from South Texas, and so they weren't allowed to go to some rodeos. So the PRCA at that time let them go to some all black rodeos.
Were they Hispanic?
No, these were just black, mostly black guys. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the PRCA gave them a waiver that allowed them to go to some black rodeos because there were some white rodeos that they couldn't attend. I remember the year I won Fort Worth, I went to, here's a funny story. I stayed out of school that one year to become an Oklahoma resident, and I moved down to Marlow, Oklahoma, and I worked on a fellow's ranch, and the deal was I would work one day on the ranch, and then we'd rope and bulldog the next day. all year long. So we did that, and at the time I entered Fort Worth, he called a friend of his that was hauling the world's champion at that time, steer wrestler, and asked if I could ride his horse at Fort Worth. See, if you ride somebody's horse and you win something, you give them 25%.
Mm-hmm.
So the fellow said, yeah, come on down, just have him look me up when he gets to Fort Worth. Well, when I got to Fort Worth and looked the fella up and he saw who I was, he told me, well, dude, my horse is loaded now. I don't have room for you. Well, luckily there was somebody else standing there and said, hey, you can ride my horse. Mm-hmm. And I won almost $4,000. So from that time on, he wanted me to ride his horse, but I stuck with that same fellow. But that was the only incident that I can remember in rodeo. Now, after I left Fort Worth, we went to Lake Charles, Louisiana. It was Tommy Steiner Rodeo. And of course, this was 1962. And I was sitting on the chutes with the rest of the cowboys waiting to participate. And the policeman came over and told me I couldn't sit there. I said, I'd never heard this in my life,
Mm-hmm.
And he says, no. I said, I'm entered here. He says, well, I don't care what you're here. You can't sit here. Well, this was before 1965 when the Civil Rights Bill went through. So there were a lot of colleges couldn't participate against other colleges in sports if there were blacks on the team.
Hmm.
So Tommy Steiner came over and said to me, he said, listen, I don't care what this cop tells you. If you ever enter here, you can either run your steer during the rodeo or you can run it after. Whatever you want to do, we'll stick with you. And so that was the only other incident I ever had with rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
But times were different then,
Mm-hmm. Was that pretty hurtful?
Well, I didn't look at that time as hurtful, but I just knew I wanted to run because I'd paid my fees. But that's the way it was, and I had never had an incident like that coming from Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that people weren't prejudiced there, but I just had never run into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did that influence you to help young people?
Well, we always, from that time on, the time we had our place here in Stillwater, we always encouraged young people to come out and we helped them with their riding and roping and stuff. So we used to give roping lessons,
Mm-hmm.
But it's just what you do, You
Mm-hmm.
try to help youngsters coming up.
Mm-hmm. You enjoy young people?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, how did a person qualify for the Rodeo Cowboy Association permit?
When I got my card, all you had to do was send them $100 and have somebody recommend you. Now they have a permit section. You have to win $1,000 to be eligible to get a PRCA card. But up until I think 1965 or 68, you just sent in your $100 and you were in. So I never had to go through the permit session.
Mm-hmm.
I just paid my fees and went to my first rodeo.
Mm-hmm. How long did you have that card? A long time?
I have a gold card now. Yeah, after I think it's 20 years or 30 years, you get a gold card from the PRCA.
Do you have it with you?
Yes, I
carry it in your wallet.
Carry it in my wallet.
Yeah. Does it allow you to get into watch rodeos?
Well, it's supposed to allow you, but I've had it for 40 years, and you go to a rodeo and show it to, and what is this? The people at the gate don't know what it is.
So they make you pay to get in?
Yeah, it's supposed to be give you a little edge, but
well, yeah,
but they do have a gold card reunion every year at the national finals that we go out to.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's at Vegas during the national finals, and they have a gold card reunion where all the old guys used to rodeo with come. They have a dinner and tell some old stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You enjoy going to that?
Yeah, I go every year.
Yeah. Were there any years you had to miss going, that you couldn't go?
There have been a few years that I missed, but I try to go almost every year.
Did they have it during COVID?
During COVID, they had it at Arlington. They didn't have it in Vegas.
Oh.
So I didn't go to Arlington, but it was on TV. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That was the only year that they didn't have it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What are some other ways that rodeo has changed? The way you got the card was one way that it
That's
changed.
one way. And it's at the time I was rodeoing, you weren't allowed to have sponsors. You had to pay your own way. Well, I don't remember the year, but it's probably been around 1974 or 5 that they allow you to have sponsors now, which you see the guys with all their names all over the shirts, which I hate. But it helps them get going.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them don't actually get money from sponsors. They might get free ropes and free hats or something. But there are very few guys that are getting a check every month to rodeo with.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the very few.
When you started, were the prizes money? Were they belt buckles?
There was money. They give away a lot more buckles now than they used to. Every little rodeo you go to now gives away a buckle. In those days, there were very few rodeos that gave away buckles and saddles.
Mm-hmm.
But they always gave money. You paid an entry fee. And most places, it was 100% payback on all your entries. Plus, the committees usually added money
Mm-hmm.
to it.
I think I read that at one point you made a decision to focus on the timed events instead of the judged events.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's just like writing a composition for English. If you give it to one teacher, you might get an A. Another teacher might give you a C. It's all judged on that person's. It's nothing that it has to have so many points in it, or it's just their opinion on what it's like. Mm-hmm. Well, in rodeo, it's either a timed event or a judged event. Now, if it's a timed event, it's a stopwatch. Well, your wife or your friends can all be standing on the sidelines and can verify your time to pretty closely. A judged event, they can't. And it's this event, and I don't care who the person is, whether you're black, white, or green, we all have some type of prejudice in us, or most people do anyway. And so if somebody's looking at a horse buck, one person can say, well, I think the other guy's horse buck better, or the cowboy rode him better. So in those days, they would just open the gate, and if the judge didn't like it, he would just turn his back and walk away and not even mark you. So after that happened 2 or 3 times, I just quit riding in the judged events.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was so much easier to get a fair time with a stopwatch. It's hard to cheat with the stopwatch.
Mm-hmm.
But the judged event, there was a black cowboy named Marvell Rogers who rode bucking horses. And at his prime in 50, 51, 52, in that era, he was as good as anybody going. He rode a horse called Warpaint at Denver to win the Bronco, and they didn't mark him. But the rodeo producer came out and paid him what the round paid because he knew he didn't get a fair shot. They just would not judge you clearly. But Marvell, he always smoked the cigars, he rode bucking horses, and Clem McSpadden used to tell stories about him all the time. But in those days, they just did not, it's a lot different now, but in those early days, it was tough for a black contestant to win in the riding event.
You had to really persevere then, didn't you?
Yeah. The timed events were much better as far as getting an equal shot.
Did you do team roping? Did you do team roping?
No. When team roping came here, we laughed at those guys from California. Everybody, I can remember, it was in the early 60s or late 50s. Some California guys came in and were trying to show us how to team rope. We laughed at them. We thought it was a joke. Well, now it's the hottest sport going. But at that time, we wouldn't even pick up a team roping. But now we should have, because it's way easier. You can last a lot longer. But at that time,
you don't have to jump off your horse.
You don't have to get off. You hardly ever get hurt. You might lose a finger or something, but it's the number one sport now in rodeo. I mean, old guys, young guys can participate, young kids, And the payoffs in those team roping events, they get 3,000 and 4,000 teams at some of the team ropings now.
Gee.
It's unbelievable what they pay. They give away new trucks and trailers at them. Yeah, it's taken over.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, we called them prunies. They'd come and try to teach you how to team rope. We laugh, you're crazy. That sport will never go. Well, you see how smart we were.
You called them prunies?
Yeah.
Like prunes?
Yeah.
Because they were from California?
Yeah.
Did that offend them?
No, they were used to it.
No.
But it's a number one sport now, let me tell you, as far as horse sales, you know, what they've done to the horse market is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Team roping.
Was Guthrie a big place for rodeos back in those days?
They used to have a big amateur rodeo at Guthrie, the 49ers, I believe? 49ers, or it was every spring they had a big rodeo in Guthrie.
Mm-hmm.
But the big rodeos, when I first started, were always the building rodeos, Denver, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston. Those were the biggest rodeos. And then, of course, Cheyenne in summertime.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever compete at the Mesquite Rodeo?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah. We went to Cheyenne probably a dozen times.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever go up to Canada?
Never crossed the border, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I guess were there black rodeos in some of the black towns in Oklahoma?
There were, but I didn't know anything about it until I came to Stillwater,
Uh-huh.
and I always had a PRCA card, so I didn't go to them.
Yeah.
After a while, I used to go to Drumrat. They had a black rodeo in Drumrat. I went once or twice,
Mm-hmm.
and another one. I know we put on a black rodeo in Langston one year. 60, 65 or 66, we put a rodeo on in Langston.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, and in South Texas there were a lot of black cowboys, but I never went to any of those rodeos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I read that you helped Langston start a roundup club.
Yeah, that's the year we put on the rodeo there in
Uh-huh.
Langston, yeah.
And did y'all build the arena?
We built the arena, yeah.
Yeah. How long did rodeo last down
I
there?
think they only had 2 rodeos, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, but they had a good turnout and stuff when we had it. See, we put on a rodeo, I think it was 1969 or so. A fellow from New Jersey came out here, and he had heard about black cowboys. And I said, out here it never crossed my mind, but he came back, he wanted to know if we could bring a rodeo to New Jersey. Because he had he'd gone around the high schools and stuff, or junior high schools and kids, and they didn't believe there were black cowboys. So Cleo Hearns, myself, Marvell Rogers, and we decided we would form an association and try to bring a black rodeo to New Jersey or to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And we were successful. We put on a rodeo at Jersey City, one in Baltimore, one in Randall's Island, and somewhere else. We got Budweiser. No, it wasn't Budweiser. It was Wrangell, I believe, gave us some money,
Uh-huh.
and somebody else. And we had a public relation company in Newark, New Jersey, run by George Richardson, and he did a lot of work for us and got us to bring a rodeo to New Jersey. And we had a pretty good turnout. We went to a lot of schools and talked to a lot of children, and they just didn't believe that black cowboys existed.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had about 3 meetings with Madison Square Garden, and we almost got into the garden, but the garden just did not believe we could get enough black cowboys to come there. And at that time, they wanted us to pay rent the building for $25,000 a performance, which we didn't have.
Yeah.
Again, but if we would have gotten into Madison Square Garden at that time, we'd be almost like the PBR is today, because it would have been a sellout. But we never were able to just get that final push to get in the garden. But we put on 3 or 4 of them, and that was before the Bill Pickett. That was like 10 years before the Bill Pickett rodeo started, which is a black touring rodeo now.
Mm-hmm. You think that was it the American Black Cowboy Association? Did that influence the Bill Pickett?
I'm sure it must have, because they were like 8 or 10 years after we put on the first rodeo. Yeah. But we came pretty close to getting in the garden. We had, like I said, we had 3 or 4 meetings with them.
Huh. So you were one of the co-founders of
Yes,
the American
yeah.
Black Cowboy Association?
We were able to round up 4 or 5 guys with pickups and trailers, and we paid their fuel to come to New Jersey, and they all bought 3 or 4 guys with them. So we had a parade on 125th Street in Harlem. We had Muhammad Ali there, and Woody Strode, and we made a movie called Black Cowboys, and it was showcased around the United States. So we had a lot of fun. Didn't make much money, but we had a lot of fun.
Were you living up in that area at that time?
Yes, at that time I had moved back to Connecticut. Yeah.
So what all is involved in producing rodeos? What was it like back then?
Well, when cowboys pull up, they think the rodeo is just there for them, but you have to have butts in the seats to pay the bills, and cowboys want to complain that you're not adding enough money, but there's a lot of promotion behind things, getting things coordinated, getting permits, and it takes a lot. Most of these big rodeos today, like, they'll have 10,000-15,000 volunteers just at Houston or San Antonio that work there for free to just getting things ready to have a rodeo. So there's a lot more to it than just guys showing up with a horse and running a calf. You've got to have PR people out, and lots of advertising, which is very expensive. So it takes a lot to promote a rodeo. And it's nothing easy. The grass always looks greener on the other side, but you get there when you have to start producing and paying the bills and seeing who's there. Everybody wants to get paid. That opens the gate or shuts the gate or turns the calf out or unties one. Those people are all on payroll, so it takes a lot to put a rodeo together.
Yeah, and you have to put together the animals.
Yeah.
Have them there.
Yeah.
Is it usually one company that will have all the stock for the?
You get one stock contractor that brings the animals there or sets the arena up and brings the animals.
Brings the bulls and the horses.
Yeah.
And the calves.
Nobody wants to volunteer, so you might get them to volunteer once, but the second time they want to get paid,
Yeah.
So it takes a lot.
Yeah, you have to hire an announcer, rodeo announcer.
And when we were back east there, we had the rodeos on basketball courts and buildings, so we had to lay poly down on the floor, bring dirt in, remove the dirt, make sure the floor wasn't,
Oh, wow.
And to bring the dirt into Madison Square Garden, it was like, in those days, I'm sure it's twice as much now, but it was like $20,000 just to bring the dirt in.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
remove it. If the circus was there first and the dirt was already there, it's one thing. But if the basketball court's down, it's got to be covered, it's got to be protected.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of expense.
Yeah, well, then you also have to have the chutes and the gates and everything.
To bring all that equipment has to come in on tractor trailers.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a big expense to put one.
Yeah.
If you're on the outside looking in.
Yeah. And then you've got to hire your announcer.
Announcers have to be hired, yeah.
You have to have concessions.
Timekeepers, concessioners, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot to it. Wow. So when you all were putting the rodeos on, I actually found a list. So 1970 in Newark.
Newark, yeah.
That was the first one.
Yeah.
Then 71, there were 3, Baltimore, Jersey City, and Harlem.
Uh-huh.
Then 72, Philadelphia.
Yeah, we went in Philadelphia.
73, Freehold, New Jersey.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, good thing you got them written down, because I don't remember. We put on about 6 or 8 of them back there.
Yeah.
And we got good response and good turnout.
Uh-huh.
I know I was on the Today Show one time.
Were you?
Yeah, and I was on What's My Line?
Oh.
All during the time we were producing those rodeos. I think Joe Garagiola, he interviewed me on the Today Show, and What's My Line? I think Betty, what was her name? Kilgallen, and Dorothy Kilgallen, and Dunny Moore, but I was on there.
Was that fun?
Yeah.
So this was the 70s, so things were changing. Times were changing.
Times were changing,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's still a lot different than it is today,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there still some barriers back in the 70s?
Not really. Not like it was when I came out here in the early 60s, you know.
So what were some ways that those rodeos helped the local communities?
Well, nowadays, the impact on a rodeo coming to town, on some of these little towns, it gives these store owners and local people their yearly income, because you know it's usually in the millions of dollars that the rodeo brings to town from people staying in motels and eating at restaurants. So there's a big impact for rodeos coming in.
Okay, so around back to the six or the rodeos that the American Black Cowboy Association produced, were you able to compete in those two?
Yes, yeah.
So you were producing it, but you were able to compete as well.
Participated, yes.
Yeah, well, that's good.
And we have a film, Black Rodeo, that we made from it. That's on a DVD.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. And when you see it now, I can remember Wrangler jeans had checkered jeans in those days and striped shirts, and when you see them,
Wranglers did?
and everybody, yeah, Wrangler made. They not only made the jeans we wear now, but they also made a light blue colored jean and almost a white jean, a khaki, khaki jean, and they made a plaid jean. And I have them on in that film, and everybody just laughs at the outfits. But yeah, they were made by Wrangler.
Do you still have any of those clothes?
No.
So what are some differences between producing rodeos in urban areas versus producing them in the rural areas? You talked about they were indoors in basketball, in the gyms.
In gymnasiums.
Yeah. Hauling the
And most
dirt
of those
in.
towns back east didn't have a permanent rodeo ground, so you'd have to find a vacant field or a vacant lot and sit in and have dirt hauled in, you know, so it's a big difference. But nowadays, all the big coliseums that do have rodeos, there's a big fee for bringing that dirt in, because they're all union labor now. So, you know, you just can't have a farmer come in and dump dirt. It's all unionized. So it's a big expense trying to get things coordinated.
Where do the competitors keep their horses?
At most rodeos, they are at fairgrounds where they do have some stalls, but we went to a lot of rodeos. You just kept them tied to your trailer that in one day or two if you had to stay over. You know, but a lot of the fairgrounds do have facilities for stalls.
So would the cowboys sleep in their trucks?
Well, in the old days, it was a pickup truck with a camper. Well, now when you pull up to some of these amateur rodeos or small rodeos, you think you're at the NFR when you see the rigs in the parking lot. They've all got, you know, new Dodge pickups and living quarters trailers, and
It's changed.
You know, and they're going to a rodeo that pays $20. You know, you know the bank owns everything. Yeah, when we used to go, I remember back in the '60s, we had a pickup truck with a little homemade shell on the back of it, and we'd sleep in the pickup truck. And usually you'd find the fairgrounds, and you could go get a shower at the fairgrounds, you know. But you didn't stay in a motel. There were 3 or 4 of us who stayed in the back of the pickup, and the morning we'd find a shower somewhere at the fairgrounds. But nowadays, it's unbelievable the money these people spend, especially on their kids. The rodeo, you know, $100,000 truck, and the trailers, these new trailers, $120,000, $130,000, and these kids have no idea what's going on, but the folks spend the money on them.
You mentioned Clem McSpadden earlier.
Clem was a good guy. He was a good guy. Yes, sir. He almost became governor.
Yes.
And he always told us if he became governor, Marvell Rogers, the fellow I told you that smoked a cigar in real saddlebags, was going to be the governor's personal chauffeur.
Oh.
So he and Marvell were great buddies. And he would tell us all these stories about him. But yeah. Clem did go to OSU, but before I did, I think he went there in the 50s.
Yeah, he started in around 49, maybe.
Yeah, so,
around then.
But he was a good announcer, you know, and a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard one of the last rodeos he announced. It was at Pawhuska.
Bus, yeah.
We went up there. We sat with his brother, Bob.
Uh-huh.
George and I did. And I think it was in June at Pawhuska.
Uh-huh.
And then he passed in
Yeah.
July. I was really sad.
I know his wife
Donna.
and Irene Harris were good buddies. And Irene Harris was the owner of Cowtown, the rodeo in New Jersey. She and her husband Howard moved out to Claremore, and they lived like across the lake from Clement
Donna.
Avenue. They were good buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Donna. I interviewed Clem and went and visited Donna a few times. I miss her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good people.
Yeah. Did you ever go to when he had his pasture roping?
Yeah, he went to his pasture roping. Yeah. Yeah. Bushy head.
Bushy head. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Clem. And he's kind of famous for his prayer that most people say at the rodeos now that he wrote.
Yeah.
And he started the steer roping at the Lazy E. I think he was pretty much one of the founders of the NFR steer roping.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also the timed event champion. I think Clem was one of the
started that.
Right?
Yeah, and the National Cowboy Hall of Fame. He was in on that. I think helped get that going. Yeah.
He was a good fellow.
Yeah.
I think their son died a few years ago
He
in a
did.
swimming pool or a hot tub or something. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very sad.
Yeah, very sad.
That was really hard.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that book about him?
I believe so. Quite a few years ago, I think I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think back to the horses you had over the years, do any particular ones stand out to you?
I had a couple of pretty good horses. I bought a horse off of Neil Love, I think in 1964 or 5. That was, and that time I believe I gave $1,500 or $2,500. It was a lot of money, but the first 6 months we hauled him, we won like $10,000 on him, So he was a good horse. Then I had a sorrel mare named Frosty that I won a lot on.
Mm-hmm.
That I actually bought for my daughter.
Oh.
But, I've had a couple of pretty good horses. Mm-hmm.
So you talked about the going to the national finals every year and the gold card event.
Yes.
Are there other ways you keep in touch with your circle of rodeo friends?
Well, I usually call a bunch of them on the phone. Try to call them once a month or once every couple of months, just to keep in contact with some of the old guys,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But a lot of guys my age aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
Thinning out.
Do you use a computer?
A little bit. But on my phone, I use
yeah.
a computer on my phone.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I keep up to date on most things.
Yeah. Do we need to take a break? Are you getting tired? Do you need to get up for a minute or anything?
Walk around a little bit.
I don't have too many more questions.
I have to put on my glasses to see who these guys are.
Did you bring your glasses?
Oh, they're out in the truck, I believe.
Oh, I have some reading glasses.
I just had my cataracts done. Oh, Ronnie Thomas, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. He was a little bull rider. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And Ken Newens, he's a veterinarian in Denver. Craig Coberly. Yeah, there were two brothers, Don Tapley and Greg. Yep, I remember them. I haven't seen these names in God knows when. Long time ago. You did some research.
I did a little bit.
Patsy Nix. I remember that lady. Huh. We got her.
So on Monday, George and I went out and saw your
On the treadmill?
your treadmill business. How'd you get into training, rehabbing, and reconditioning horses?
Well, when I came back here, I believe it was in this is 2000, about
This is
210, I guess it was. No, it was before that. Around 2000, I decided I was going to come back out here. So I was about ready to retire, you know, and I was getting rid of all my properties back east. And a kid that was going to school here named C.R. Bradley, he was from Indiana, and we got to where we roped every day at the house, you know, and he made the NFR the year he graduated. I believe that was 203 or 210? And anyway, one of my old buddies from New Jersey called me and said his mother-in-law bought a farm in New Jersey, an old horse farm, and it had a machine inside the horse barn that she wanted to park her car in there, and they were advertising it for a year, and nobody would come and look at it. So I said, well, next time I come to New York, I'll swing by and take a look at it. Well, I went by there, and it was a aqua-treadmill. Now, I had heard about aqua-treadmills, but I had never seen one, and didn't know anything about it. And he told me that he's been advertising it, and no one showed any interest. I said, well, what's the deal? He said, well, you can have the machine, but there is one part of it that my father-in-law could use in his construction business. So if you'll give me $500 for this hydraulic pump, you can have the whole thing, and we'll give you a trailer to haul it back to Oklahoma with. So I hauled it back, and I asked my ex-wife, she still had the place on McElroy, if I bought a machine back there, could I set it up in one of the buildings and I'll pay you rent on it? And she said, yeah. So when I got it back, I called my friend C.R. Bradley, and I said, C.R., I just got this machine. I really don't know what to do with it. Would you be interested in taking it? And if you can use it, if not, don't worry about it. So a couple of days later, he called me back, and he said, well, my mother says, I'm a friend with a guy down here that has one, and she didn't want me going in the same business with him or something. I said, well, that's okay. Well, I decided maybe I'll set it up and give me something to do, I'm getting a little too old to rodeo, and at least I can see some people every day if I have this machine. So I set it up at the Stillwater training stable, and I put a couple of ads in the Barrel Horse News and a couple of the horse publications, and people started coming around. And it turned out that it turned into a nice little retirement deal for me. I get to see new people every day that bring their horses in, and get to still handle a few horses, So I've had it now for like 20 years, and it's been a godsend. So I was kind of glad he didn't take it.
Yeah.
Because I've had some years that it really did well with it. I don't advertise it anymore, just old customers now, but it still keeps me busy. I do 4 or 5 horses a day or 3 or 4 days, and gives me something to do. So
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the machine is very little maintenance. Every couple of years I have to replace the belt on it. It costs about $800 to replace the belt. And I know it has a chain drive on it. And the first time the chain broke, I worked on it for 2 days and couldn't get it fixed. And I worked on it and cussed and swore. So I have a friend that lives south of town that's an auto mechanic. So he came up and looked at it. And the first day he worked on it for about 3 or 4 hours, and he finally got the chain. Well, the second time the chain broke, he had it down to like 30 minutes. So now anytime if I get a broken chain, I give him $100 and he fixes the chain. So maintenance-wise, it's very, very good. as far as that's concerned, and it runs constantly, you know. And I get a lot of people. I get referrals from veterinarians, you know, bring horses in.
Mm-hmm.
There's not very many of them. There's one over by the Tulsa area, and there's one down in Purcell, but there are very few of them around. I think there's one in Guthrie now. Of course, the Lazy E has one. They only do their own horses,
Mm-hmm.
but people that like it swear by it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I get some people with older horses that don't want to ride them every day, and they'll just leave them there, and I'll keep them, and they'll pick them up and take them to the rodeo and bring them back, and I get a lot of rehabs for injuries and things. So it's been really good for me.
Mm-hmm. Is there one thing when we saw it Monday? I wasn't sure about the water. Is there a storage thing for the water?
The thing the platform I stand on is a tank that's 2 feet deep
Mm-hmm.
by 12 feet by 12 feet, and it's full of water. And you recycle the water. The pump pumps it up into the machine and drops it down. And I can usually get 3 to 4 weeks before I have to drain the water. Usually 3 weeks, and I empty it and put fresh water in. And every day I dump chlorine in it.
Mm-hmm.
But so you recycle the water.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So what's involved in like emptying the water? Did you put a hose to it?
Well, just put a pump on it and then pull a lever, and the rest of it drains out. So it's pretty easy to dump.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it drains out
outside.
Into
Yeah.
in the pasture. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay. This has been a great interview. I'm really honored that you're speaking with me today.
I think with a million things I could have said it once I get home, you know. But I would like to add that scholarship I'm working on after I'm sure it's set. But
Mm-hmm.
Is that on or off?
Mm-hmm. It's on. It's on.
It's on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's going. All right. In 2019, you were the inaugural recipient for the Forgotten Trailblazers Award at the Legacy of the West.
I was in Las Vegas during the National Finals Rodeo. I didn't. I think Keith Cartwright was the one that initiated. He wrote the book on the Black Cowboys, and so they told me they were going to give me this award in Vegas. So my sisters and cousins all came out and went to Vegas, and they gave me this award for the Legacy of the West. And it had the fellow that gave the introduction speech. Keith couldn't get there because he's with the PBR now, and he had somebody, and I was really surprised. He had a nice introduction speech, and I've got it on my phone somewhere. But,
So is it a special event?
Special event.
Did they have, when they were talking about you and introducing you, were they showing pictures or anything?
No,
On the
he
screen?
just read the
Mm-hmm.
things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, I guess, didn't know, but the PRCA was broken up into, I think it's 7 regions: the Northeast Circuit, the Southeast Circuit, the Great Plains Circuit. I think there's 7 circuits. Well, after I had to move back to Connecticut, I won the all-around in the Northeast Circuit, I believe 3 times, and the steer wrestling 3 or 4 times. So I had like 6 or 7 the regional PRCA Northeast Circuit champions.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then this year, you received another award.
I received another reward from the rodeo club here at OSU for more or less a pioneering award for helping a lot of guys that went to school here that used to come out and practice. I didn't even remember, but I can remember Steve Slack, and of course C.R. Bradley, and a bunch of guys that went to school here used to hang out at our house and wrote.
That was called the Legacy Award.
Legacy Award, yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, you mentioned the book. So that was in 2021. The title of the book is Black Cowboys of Rodeo, Unsung Heroes from Harlem to Hollywood and the American West.
Right.
It was published by University of Nebraska Press, and as you said before, Keith Ryan Cartwright is the author. And there's one whole chapter about you, and then you're in another chapter. And so how has being in that book changed things for you?
Well, it really hasn't changed anything, but it lets a lot of the younger guys know that the trouble we had or the difficulties we had trying to get rodeo shown to kids back east who knew nothing about horses, At the time we did it, we weren't looking to become famous or anything. We were trying to educate people back east that, in the American West, there were a lot of black cowboys that people don't know. And since that thing, I found out a lot of things myself, that the story that the original Lone Ranger is based on the black cowboy. But at that time in Hollywood, they weren't going to make a black cowboy a star. But there was a fellow by the name, I believe his name was Bass Reed, who was the original black, was what the Lone Ranger story was based on. So, and those kids back, we had a booklet with those rodeos we produced that had a lot of heroes from the Old West. I think there's a lady named Mary Fields that was a stagecoach driver in North Dakota, and somebody that went with Lewis and Clark that was a guide. These were all black guys. And then after slavery, a lot, they said that probably 40% of the cowboys that moved cattle were black in the early, but in the history books, that's never been brought out. So we were trying to bring a lot of this stuff to kids back east to let them know that, hell, you can be a cowboy.
Yeah. So you put together these booklets?
We had a booklet that we passed out at the rodeos and talked to the children in school with them.
Would you give them away to the kids at school?
At the school, yeah, we gave them away. Because I think it was Wrangell. They gave us a grant to go to schools and try to have some educational tours.
Do you still have any of those little books?
I think I do. I'll have to dig. Yeah,
I'd love to see one. Okay, this has been a great interview today. You mentioned that one thing that you would change looking back would be to get your pilot's license at OSU. Is there anything else that comes to your mind about?
Well, study a little more and got in med school. But we've had fun. Everybody says, you went to school all those years and you're building houses. Well, I built houses I probably built, went to Ghana, West Africa, and built homes in Ghana.
What was that like?
I was building some homes in upstate New York, and a doctor from Ghana came out and saw one of those houses, and he said, well, would you come to Ghana? I said, hell, there's nothing in Africa I want to see. So he kept talking, and one day I said, you know what, let me go over there and see. So I went to Africa, and I was shocked. So we formed a corporation, and got things rolling over there. And when talking about not wanting to go to Africa, I'd heard all these stories all my life that black people that go to Africa, and they go down to these slave castles where the slaves were, and they start breaking down and crying. I said, you guys are crazy. Nobody's going to cry when you go to Africa. Well, let me tell you, I went to Africa, and this fellow that was with us took us to one of those slave castles where, it's all cobblestone, and you go way down these dungeons, and the room is probably 20 by 20, and they'd say they'd have like 200 people in this thing. Well, let me tell you, I started crying. I never thought it would affect me, but I'd heard that all my life. Yeah, you go to Africa, you'll see what. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a chance to go back to your father's birthplace?
I've been to Jamaica several times. Yeah, my father never went back because my mother wouldn't fly go over the water. But yeah, I've gone to his birthplace. He has I still have relatives and things
Uh-huh.
over there.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to share?
I don't know. Can't think of it. I'll think of it tonight probably, but right now I can't. Just have to let people know that whatever you want to do, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter.
In your barn, when George and I were there Monday, so you had some things up on the walls.
Yes, I call that my Hall of Fame.
Your Hall of Fame.
Everybody that I either swim a horse for or has passed or something, I've had their obituary up there. But a lot of my customers send me a picture and they put up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a way to remember.
Some of the old guys,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you want to be remembered?
Just remembered as a good guy that tried to help some people. Yeah. I had some good horses. Because a lot of people tell me I had a lot of good horses,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We used to ride a lot of horses. When we first came to town, we would ride a lot of horses for people. And they would never send you good horses in those days. It was horses that, and we had a pretty good reputation for making some pretty good horses,
Mm-hmm.
We rode, in those days, we rode a lot of horses. Yeah.
There's ways to make money if
There's
you
ways.
want to work and do it, right?
I can remember Barbara used to make homemade bread. There was a radio station that came on every day, on a local station, some kind of a swap and shop thing.
Mhm.
And she would sell her bread on the radio station, and I would deliver it. I had a little Lambretta scooter. I'd deliver this bread. She'd sell goat's milk. We had a goat. And a lot of babies, I guess, at that time were having digestive problems.
Uh-huh.
And we were selling goat's milk on this show. And after about 2 or 3 months, the county health commissioner called us and came out and said you couldn't sell milk unless it was pasteurized. So we went to Sears and Roebuck's and we bought a little milk pasteurizer, and we would pasteurize this goat milk. And she sold a lot of goat milk in this town. And I told her she picked pecans to pay for the Dr. Redding for childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and every day she'd be on that program. She'd hustle around and she'd trade something for something else. And off. I don't know if that program is still on the radio or not, but it used to be on every single day.
Huh.
Local station.
Uh-huh.
Swap and shop, I think it was.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make it if you want to make it, if you want to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned how Stillwater's changed.
Oh, boy. Like I was telling you, when we came to Stillwater, Perkins Road was a dirt road. And there were 2 grocery stores, big Douglas Big Country Store and the IGA. That were the 2 supermarkets in town.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was on Perkins Road. Wasn't anything on Perkins Road. No Walmarts, no McDonald's. Yeah.
I'm not sure when Frank Eaton passed away, but did you ever meet?
I never met him,
Frank
but he
Eaton?
was, when I was, he was alive then. Yeah, he lived in Perkins. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I never met him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was a kid I used to study with who became a doctor of in animal science, and he used to help me study all the time. And I've been trying to find him. I can't look at what I don't remember his name. I know for a few years his wife used to send out like a Christmas letter where they were, but I heard he was in China and somewhere else.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to remember his name now. But I certainly would like to find him.
Well, maybe if you had a chance to look through some of the old yearbooks that we
I might
have,
find him, yeah.
you might find him. Yeah.
What the heck is his name?
Do you remember where he was from?
I'll think of it in a minute.
Okay.
I know I went to Oklahoma City when Cleo Hearn last year got inducted into the Cowboy Hall of Fame, and a guy walked up to me and he said, "You won't remember me, but I used to come out to your house and rope with you guys, and I want to thank you for all the help you gave me and stuff." And I had no idea who he was.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Oh, what's his name? I'll think of it tomorrow.
So, what do you know about this Real Cowboy Association?
Which cowboy?
The Real Cowboy Association out of Texas, I think. You know anything about
I
that?
don't know anything about that.
I
I know there are 2 or 3 black associations in South Texas.
it's one of those.
They had some really pretty tough hands that were cowboys, but I didn't know any of them. The only ones I knew from South Texas were Calvin Greeley. He came up and I rodeoed with him a while. See, when I joined the PRCA, I think at that time there were only 6 black cowboys in the PRCA. 6 or 7 of us, yeah. Were the first in the PRCA. But there are a lot of guys in South Texas, if they would hit the road, they could make the NFR or the PBR, but they will not leave the house. There was a fellow over here at Tulsa that could really rope, Randy Jackson, and people begged him to get in the truck with him to go, but wouldn't leave the house. Barry Burke wanted to haul him, Fred Whitfield wanted to haul him, just wouldn't leave the house. And you only have 4 or 5 years when you can, are competitive. But he broke all kinds of records everywhere around here, but just would not get in the truck and leave. And that goes for black and white contestants. There are a bunch of Caucasian cowboys that could have made the NFR if they'd gone, but they preferred just to get a job. And it takes a certain person to stay out on that road and sleep in the back of a truck and eat 1 hamburger a day. It takes a certain person. It's not an easy way to go. It's much easier now than it used to be. Especially with the sponsorships. If you're getting a check, that really helps.
Most of the people that get into it now, do they have to have money to even get started, don't they?
No, you can't say that, because people will help you if you look like you've got some talent and really a desire. There's a lot of good people that will help you, but it's an expensive sport. It's just, when you buy a horse, I tell everybody, it's the bottomless pit. I mean, it's an endless well. It's not buying a horse, it's the upkeep and the maintenance and this and that. And it's just, there's no end to it. So, but at least you're not in the bar drinking every night. You're home when you're riding a horse. But it's an expensive sport. English or what? English is twice as bad.
Is it?
But when I bought my first horse, it was $40 a month to board the horse.
And in the 50s?
In the 50s. To keep it at somebody else's place, they bought the feed and egg, and they took care of it for $40 a month. Well, there are places in Connecticut, I know, it's $5,000 a month at some of those English stables. Now, Joan, what was her name? Joan Collins. She was a newscaster on ABC station for years. Joan London. She and her daughter had a horse at a stable in Connecticut, and it was like $5,000 a month per horse to board.
Gee.
Yeah, so it's, but $1,500, $2,000 a month is just, back east is just not, Plus all the extras they throw on top of it. It's an expensive sport. But rodeo, there's been some world champions that started with nothing, practice, and people saw that they had some talent and they helped them. There's a will, there's a way. If you want it bad enough, you can make it. But nobody hands anything to you. You got to deserve it. You got to work at it.
Your grandkids involved with horses?
My granddaughter's a horseshoer. She went to Oklahoma Horseshoe Academy, and she shoes a lot of horses. That's a nice job.
Mm-hmm.
She shoes horses every day. She has a little trailer that she pulls. It's all fixed up with all the machinery and our forge and things.
Mhm.
Yeah, the other one, I have another granddaughter that's a nurse, so she can ride, but not interested. The grandson not interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people get that bug, and you can't get rid of it. Yeah.
So were your daughters here when you were back east in the
Yes.
70s?
Yes.
Yeah, they were growing up here.
Barbara, yes.
Mhm.
So I did miss a lot of that growing up with them, which I regret now, but
Mhm.
that's life, you know. You
Mhm.
can't change it.
Can't change it.
You
No.
can't change it.
No. No. Have you enjoyed being back in Stillwater?
Oh, yeah, I like this town. I really
Mhm.
do. Yeah. Nobody bothers you here, you know. It's a good town.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever go when the OSU rodeo team has their rodeo?
Yeah, every year.
Do you? Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And watch?
Yeah, watching. And a lot of old guys come to see that I hadn't seen in years, come there every year.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we have what
Did we use up all our time? Oh, here's another thing I just remember. There was a kid named Bob Hawkins that graduated here, and I think he's a county. He works something for OSU, like a county, environment, something with a USDA, but graduate from OSU, and he went to school here in Ropeland, and I saw him at a college rodeo a few years ago. He said, "Bud, I got to tell you this. You're the first guy I ever saw that worked out that rodeo." I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, I can know up until that time, cowboys were cowboys. They didn't go to the gym." He says, "I can remember you coming out to your house and you had an incline board and you did sit-ups every day and lifted weight." He said, "I had never seen anybody that roped before or bulldog that worked." And they didn't back in those. Now they all go to the gym. But in those days, he said, I was the first one he had ever seen that actually trained to rodeo.
Oh, that's interesting. What got you started in that direction?
Well, I lifted weights for football,
For
and
football.
stuff, so I just always believed in working out.
Uh-huh.
But I can remember coming out, and I remember seeing all these guys. They never worked out. They just roped, roped and drank beer.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Bob Hawkins.
Bob Hawkins. I was waiting to see if any other stories were coming to you that you might want to share. I'm not in
Some
any
of my
hurry.
stories you might know they wouldn't be fit for print. We got lots of stories, but got to censor some of them. Yeah.
Looking at that story you brought here. What year was this done?
That was just a couple of years ago.
2020.
Yeah.
Summer, fall.
When the students was in the writing class or something called me up one if he could do a story. I mean,
Uh-huh. How did he hear about you?
after the thing from Vegas, because it was in the
Oh,
Stillwater
yeah.
News Press.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this fella hazing for me up there, that's Willard Combs. He was from Chakotah, and he was a world champion in 55 and 56. His son came to school here in, must have been 67 or 8 or something, and Willard sent 10 steers up with him. So we bulldogged every single day. Old Tommy. Yeah.
Where is he now?
Tommy's still in Chakotah.
Uh-huh.
I see him in Vegas every year. In fact, I'll go to Roy Duval's steer wrestling next week. He is in Chakotah. I go down there and see a bunch of old guys I haven't seen.
Huh.
Yeah.
Jim Shoulders. Did you know Jim?
I met him several times, yeah.
Mhm.
I did know him, yeah. And I used to go to Mesquite.
Yeah. He was from Henrietta, I think.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But see, he was older before me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did know him. In fact, there's a guy here in town, Joe Prater, that who's from Houston, and I met him, and he worked for Jim Shoulders.
Huh. Joe Prater.
Joe Prater. He came up from Houston one year with a bunch of black cowboys, and they went to bowling, Muskogee, and he met a girl here in town and married her, and he lived here in 10th Street, and he died a few years ago, but I used to haul him to rodeos and pay his entry fees, and he rode bulls really, really well, and he worked for Jim Shoulders.
Huh.
Yeah. They're kind of like my adopted family in Stillwater.
Well, it sounds like you've made lots of friends over the years.
Yeah, I've met a lot of nice people,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to keep in touch with most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know on New Year's Day I call just to go through my book and call everybody I can remember to call.
Mm-hmm.
Try to keep in touch with them.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I think we're done.
All right. Nato Alley down around Norman and that area, but Stillwater never seems to get hit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you were saying about when you came to Oklahoma about the Indians. So let's backtrack and tell me
Yeah,
a little bit again.
I remember when I first came to Oklahoma, my mother would ask me, did you see any Indians? And I said, no, I haven't seen any Indians. I had class at OSU, and I never saw any Indians. And after about 6 months, I was talking to somebody. I said, where are the Indians in Oklahoma? And they said, well, probably the guy standing next to you is probably an Indian. I said, oh, I just thought they had high cheekbones and long hair. But everybody in Oklahoma seems to be an Indian. They've all got numbers, but it never dawned on me that they can have blonde hair and blue eyes. So I told my mother that, and she said, oh, I thought there'd be real Indians out there. But that's the way things are portrayed on TV, you never.
Yeah, that's
Never
what
hear
you
of
grew up
anything else.
seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. I was always looking for Indians.
Well, and then you said you visited an Indian woman who helps with healing.
Yes, there's a lady over in Sapulpa
Uh-huh.
that one of my customers told me about that's supposed to be a naturalist or in fact, she said she's an Indian, and I said, do you mean what, a dot or American Indian? She says, no, I'm not sure, but I think she's a native Indian. And she's like a holistic doctor. She looks into your eyes and looks in your throat, and she starts writing and prescribes stuff, and people swear by her. So one day I went over to check her out,
Uh-huh.
and she seems to know what she's talking about, because I didn't tell her what was wrong with me, and my friend didn't tell her, and she just looks in your eyes and looks in your throat, and she starts writing and prescribes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That you can, and she costs nothing. It doesn't cost you anything to go there,
Mhm.
and you don't have to buy the stuff from the store.
Mm-hmm.
But she seems to be right on. She can see stuff that we can't see, and so it's hard to disbelieve something like that if it works. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm in her corner. Yeah.
And then you talked about Stillwater and the weather. So tell me that again.
Oh yeah.
About
When I first came here, I'd never heard of a tornado shelter or tornado. And when we got to Oklahoma, people told us that they have tornadoes there. And somebody one day was talking to me, and they said, "Listen, the Indians put a curse on Stillwater years ago that said there would never be any tornadoes in Stillwater." And of course, I didn't believe them, but I've been here over 50 years, and I remember one west of town several years ago, but I've never seen a tornado. When they give their tornado reports on their TV. I just go to bed. I've never had a tornado shelter, never been in a home, but I figured Stillwater won't have one. And we never have as long as I've been here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But everybody's got a Frady hole. But I guess I haven't been scared enough because I've never even thought about putting one in. I can remember the old tornado shelters. They were full of spiders, and people had them made out of rocks. I wouldn't go in them.
Have you had any friends over the years that are Indians?
If I did, I didn't know they were Indians. Like I said,
just wasn't talked about.
My daughter was married to a Cherokee Indian. If I passed him on the street, I wouldn't know he was an Indian. But her children have numbers. No, I don't even look for Indians anymore. That was just coming from the East, seeing them on TV.
Yeah.
But a lot of people in Oklahoma have numbers. A lot of people. And I think they own all the casinos.
Well, yeah.
The tribes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.